me share my screen. Fine. So my screen is visible, right?
Yes, sir.
Fine. So in the previous class, we moved to see how we can retrieve data from a single table. So for this purpose, we started using SQL coding. As I discussed in the previous class, SQL statements, SQL structured query language, SQL statements are categorized based on their functions as data manipulation language and the data definition language and data control language. These are the major categories of SQL statements. And we started learning these data manipulation language. So data manipulation language, we used to insert data into the tables, insert data into the tables, and update or modify the existing data, or remove the data, delete existing data from tables, and display data using select statements. Displaying data. Out of these four categories, we started learning about this category, select statements, right? So select statements can be, I have decided design the course in a way that we first start with displaying data from a single table, okay? Single table we first start with, and then we will see in the next chapter, we will see how we can retrieve data from two or more tables, right? Two or more tables, how we can display data. And after that, we will see how we can summarize the data, summary queries, they are called. Summarize the data using aggregate functions. And then we will see how we can use subqueries, right? Subqueries. So all of them we will see under this select statement. After that, we will see how we can use insert statements to input data into one or more tables, or insert data more than one row of data, right? More than one rows of data into tables. And then we will see how we can modify the existing data. If there is any updates in the data available, how we can update them, modify them. After that, we will see how we can remove the data from the tables. That is one set of statements, right? Next, we will see after that how we can create databases. Creating databases, we will see how we can create databases and how we can create tables. And then table constraints, how we can implement constraints in these tables, and create out of that we will have primary key, foreign key relationships, primary key keys, right? Primary key, foreign key, and then a unique key, implement unique keys, and check constraints, right? Check constraints like that we will see. Okay, so in each chapter we'll be moving on to see, and finally we will see how we can create users and set privileges like that. If time permits, we will learn that as well. Most of the focus will be on this part, right? On this part, select statements, we will see, right? In this excuse me, connection, what we started with was retrieving data from a single table, right? So single table, in a sense, I already showed you how we can download the sample from the Murach website, and how we can install that database, install or create the database, and then running this query window like that. We already saw, right? So currently you can see master database is selected. If you want to use our sample accounts payable AP database, we can use this combo box to select the database, or otherwise we can use statement and the database name, so that, and pressing the F5 key on the keyboard or clicking on this execute button, we can make sure that the database we are going to use is accounts payable. After that, if you want to retrieve data, we can use these select statements we saw up to this point. Fine. So the comprehensive list of the syntax of this select statement is shown here. select list goes from table source or table list goes, and then if you want to filter some data, we will use a where clause, and then if you want to arrange the data that is displayed, as a result set. When you pass an SQL statement, the data set that is data that is displayed is called the result set, right? If you want to arrange the result set in any order, we can use order by clause. Further, we noted that in the previous class, SQL statements are not case sensitive. This is also considerable point, right? We have to consider that point as well. So we started seeing the samples, and this is the relationship window that we create. I also showed how to create this in the SQL Management Studio. So if you want to create a new relationship window to see the number of tables available and their relationships, we showed this as well, right? So primarily we will be working with 4 tables. They are listed here: vendors table, invoices, invoice line items, and terms table. These are from a sample database that we downloaded and installed in our SQL Server Management Studio, right? SQL Server, using SQL Server Management Studio. SQL Server Management Studio is an integrated development environment that we use to interact with the SQL Server database. So SQL Server is a database management system that is that comes from a Microsoft corporation. It is an enterprise database management system. Microsoft also ships another database management system that is called Access, right? Microsoft Access. That is one of the product of MS Office Suite, right? So that the latest version is 2019. That is for desktop application, desktop database. It's called desktop database, where it can be used by a single user. And in some occasions, based on the requirement of any business entities, so we can share the database created in Access, and we can partition the database so that we can allow more than one user to interact with the system simultaneously, that is concurrently. But anyways, when it comes to enterprise need for data, we have to go for a big database management system like SQL Server, Oracle, DB2, like that. MySQL is also another database management system that is very popular these days because of its free of charge in nature. These SQL Server, Oracle database, they are commercial database provided, which means we have to buy. If we want to use it in a real world environment, production environment, we call it, we have to buy you giving money. In the case of MySQL, it is up to now it is available free of charge. That is one reason why it is so popular in the world, right? So we will, since Microsoft if it is a Microsoft product, that product will have more features and easy to use and intuitive features it has. We have opted to use a SQL Server. Using this SQL Server, we will learn SQL language, which is an ANSI standard, right? SQL is an ANSI standard like HTML. Like HTML, this is also an ANSI standard, which means nobody owns it. It's a standard, right? So if anybody can type a select statement, it will work in any select all from, and database table name goes. This syntax will work in MySQL, SQL Server, Oracle. In all system it will work because it is a standard, right? Like HTML, okay? And also, while it is a standard, particular vendors like Microsoft, Oracle, and MySQL, like that, those vendors, MySQL is also from Oracle nowadays, and those vendors will add their own flavor, own syntax, right? So Microsoft version of SQL is called TSQL, right? TSQL, which stands for Transect SQL. Transect SQL. Transect SQL is a Microsoft version of SQL, right? So we will be learning TSQL, or TSQL. We will be learning, right? In that connection, we saw in the previous class how we some syntaxes, right? Some codes to display data, right? First, we saw how we can retrieve data from all data from a particular table. Invoices is one of the table available one of the tables available in the accounts payable database. So if you want to show, if you want to display all records from a single table, this is the syntax: select asterisk from table name. We saw that in the previous class as well. If you want, I can run this code again and show how it works. Here I have made sure that accounts payable is selected. So the syntax is select all from table name, vendors. Vendors is one of the tables available in the accounts payable database. Once you have entered the code, you have to execute it. You have to run the code. To run the code, what you can do is you can click on the execute button on this status toolbar, or alternatively, you can press F5 key on the keyboard. Both will do the same job, that will execute the code and display the data that is available in this table. The table name is vendors. And like this vendors, there are other tables also, like invoices, right? If you want to display data from invoices table, all data from invoices table, what we can do is we can type select all from invoices. Okay, invoices. And you have to note, excuse me, you have to note, if you have more than one set of SQL statements, you should make sure which statement to execute. So making sure is done by selecting by mouse or your keyboard and selecting the statement and then executing. Now this statement has been executed. Invoice data from the invoices table are displayed. If you execute this, data from vendors table is displayed. But if you deselect them and if you just click on this execute, both will be executed. And this is one result set and this is another result set. The result that is displayed of an SQL statement is called result set, right? So this also we saw in the previous class. Then selecting, there are times where we don't want all data to be displayed from a table. We might be interested in displaying a particular column, right? Not all records, particular columns. In those instances, what we have to do is to list the column names that are available in the data in the table. Okay, so here if I want to display vendor ID, vendor name, and vendor city, only these three columns from this vendors table, what I can do is, rather than selecting all items, we can list them, right? You have to match the column name correctly. So I'm going to say vendors. Now I'm going to say vendor ID. Vendor ID. So you might see here this IntelliSense. This is called IntelliSense. IntelliSense is populating the columns that are matching with this letters, with the words that I have already listed. But if I avoid this from vendors, if I type VNDO, it shows only the table name, right? It shows only the table name, and it does not know the columns that we are intending to retrieve, because we have not mentioned the table name. If you mention the table name, automatically the Management Studio decides or finds the columns that are matching. Okay, now I have given the name select. Now I'm going to say vendor ID. Now you see the vendor ID column is inside this vendors table. That's why it is displaying. So I can double click or press tab key to accept it. Then vendor name, second column is vendor name. Vendor name. Okay, and then vendor city. City. Now I want to display these three columns, not all. Okay, so I'm going to select them and execute. So here you see 122 rows displayed. There are 122 rows. These are row numbers. 122. This is vendor ID. This is row number. So that's why it's showing 122 rows returned for 3 columns. Right. So you can also arrange. We had a bird's eye view of all the syntaxes. That's what I'm showing here. We can also arrange the results that is displayed using order by clause, right? Using order by clause, we can arrange the result set, right? So we can go on to see the same here. If you want to arrange the result set by vendor name, we can have order by clause, order by vendor name. Okay, order by vendor name. Here you see it is starting. The first one is starting with UL postal service, right? Now we will see which one it is starting with. It is starting with Abbey office furnishings, right? So it is starting with A. So by default, the order is ascending order, right? You can have it ascending or descending. So if you want to arrange it from A to Z, A to Z, you have to make sure it is ascending order. It is mentioned by ASC. And if you omit this ASC, this will also run the code by ascending order because there is a default arrangement. If you want to have it in a descending order, you have to mention DSC, descending, DESC. So now we will see the first one will be Z, right? It is in descending order. The last one will be A. If there is A is available, if A is available, last one will be A because it is in descending order, right? Any doubts?
No, sir.
Fine. Next is using an alias, right? You can use. We will see in depth later on. You can use. You can have more than one column. You can have expressions, right? In a sense, you can have expressions. Expression means you can have a column name and operators, right? Arithmetic operators to join columns or to do some calculations like that. So when you are doing a calculation on a column, you have to use a name to give a meaningful column heading, right? So it can be done using column alias or alias. We can use alias. Alias is mentioned by S keyword. You can even omit this. We will see how this works. So let me display data from when invoice table. Select all from invoices. So invoice is displaying. So what I can do is I can do some calculations. So if I say select invoice number, invoice total from invoices. Okay, let's run this. Here we have invoice number and invoice total. Also, we will have vendor ID. Okay, vendor ID. So we can identify from which vendor we bought, and we can do some calculations here, right? We can what we can do, we can multiply or we can do some additions. Invoice total multiplied by 10%, 0.1. Oops, 0.1, right? So it is a 10%. Let's run this and see what happens. Here you see it is it is doing a calculation. $3,813.33 and 10% is $381.333. Okay, that's how the calculation done. It is called an expression, right? This is an expression. So when you are having an expression, you have to give a column name. Here it is showing us no column name because it is a calculation. So calculation is done, but SQL Server is unable to find a proper name for that because we have to mention the name. We can say as discount 10% discount. Okay, let's run this. You see that name is given. Okay, that name is given. So Adani said we will resume after Adani is over. Give me 2 minutes. Is my voice breaking?
No, sir.
Somebody
No,
has mentioned that voice is breaking. Anyways, fine. Let us resume. So this can be given as using the as keyword. This is called column alias or column alias. So even if you drop this as keyword, still it will work. Right? Still it will work. So we have given 10% discount, right? So let me cut this and place it here, an equal sign. We will see if it runs. Still it runs. Okay. So here I'm copying it, undo, and here I'm placing it, redo. So this is a SQL standard method of doing it, right? This is SQL method, and this one, it is the Microsoft version of having an alias. This is T-SQL version. Okay, so the standard method is SQL standard general method is this, NC standard method is this, and for SQL Server, Microsoft supports this method, right? Also, I can square bracket will work. Let's see. Okay, still it works because this is SQL Server method. This is T-SQL style. T-SQL style. This is SQL style. Both will work, right? You should know both of them. That's why I'm showing them both. So if there is a text value, we have to text or date value. We have to enclose it within a single quote, right? Let me see if double quote works. Double quote will also work for SQL Server, right? So if it is a text value, you have to include it in a single quote or double quote or an square bracket, right? A square bracket, right? So this is how it works. This is called a column alias, right? We call it column alias. Excuse me. This double dash means commenting. Okay, commenting. It will become as green color, which means commenting. This code will be ignored by the compiler, right? If you run this code will be ignored. There won't be any changes, right? Any modifications or any effect. Okay, this is a commenting, right? So next is using where clause. Where clause in a sense, if you want to filter data that is displayed, we can use where clause. If you are not interested in all records, right? If you are not interested in all records, what you can do is you can filter. Say we can order this, order by invoice total. Okay, invoice total descending. Okay, let's run this. Now you see the largest amount is 37,966.19. This is the largest amount, maximum, and the smallest amount is 6. I want to see the records that are above 10,000. Okay, above 10,000 only. So what I can do is I can have this where clause, where invoice total greater than 10,000, right? And order by clause will come next. Right? Run this. 10,000, buddy. Yeah. So here you see only the values above 10,000 are displayed. This is done by order where clause, right? And if you want to have less than 10,000, less than 10,000, right? That's how it works. That is using where clause. So in brief, we know how we can use select statement, from, where, and order by, right? So if you want to display it in an ascending order, what we do? What do we have to do? Ascending order.
Yes.
Remove this, right? See here, it's in ascending order. If you want to have in descending order, you have to mention DESC, descending order. Right? Any questions? Any questions? Any doubts? Please ask. If you have any question, please ask. Anybody?
No, sir.
Fine. So next we will see how we can use get duplicates record out. So for that, duplicate in a sense, more than one instance of the same value, more than one instance of the same value. Let's select vendor city from vendors. Okay, vendor city from vendors. Order by vendor city. Here you see, you'll be getting 122 rows. 122 rows, but there are duplicate values. Okay, duplicate values. You see, Chicago twice, and this city has been repeating for a number of times, right? Duplicate values. If we want to remove these duplicate values, what we can do is we can use distinct keyword. Distinct. Okay, distinct keyword. If you use a distinct keyword, it returns only the unique values. Okay, only unique values. There won't be any duplicates. Let's run this. Only 50 rows are there. All of them are unique, not duplicate. There's no same values. No same values, right? We use this. We get these results by using distinct keyword. So if you remove this distinct keyword, all records will be returned. 122 rows with duplicate values. You see, Fresno is repeated a number of times, right? So if you want to get rid of these duplicates, we have to use distinct keyword. Okay, distinct keyword. You see, Fresno is only available one time, only 50 rows, right? Here you see, only 50 rows are returned. So that's how we use a distinct keyword to remove duplicate values. Any doubts? Another example, select from invoices. Okay, vendor ID. So here you see, we have 114 rows. From certain vendors, we have purchased more than one time. From vendor ID 123, we have purchased 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, right? Here also found 7, 8 times. If you order them, order by vendor ID, you see 123 is coming a number of times, right? So we can use distinct keyword to avoid duplicates. Distinct. Excuse me. See, only 34 rows. Previously there were 114 rows. Here you see at the right hand top bottom corner, 114 rows. Now only if you use a distinct keyword, only 34 rows. Only from 34 vendors we have purchased 114 times. From 34 vendors we have purchased 114 times. So we can use a distinct keyword, right? So then we will see next is next keyword is this is concatenation, distinct keyword, and then top keyword, right? Top. So top means if you want to get the top 5 or top 10% of the records, we can use a top keyword. Top keyword can be used with numbers, or it can be used with percent, right? Say, for example, if you want to find the top performing vendors, what we can do is the sales, top 10 sales, sales in its purchases. Select all from invoices. So from these invoices, we will see here you see we have a invoice total, right? Invoice total. So if you want to see the maximum 5 purchases, let's see order by invoice total descending. Okay, descending. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a maximum 5, right? So let's run like this: vendor ID, invoice ID, vendor ID, invoice number, and invoice total. Invoice total. Okay. Here we have top 5. You see here. We have only top 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So you might do you have any doubt here? Do you have any doubt here?
No, sir.
You should wonder. You should wonder. I'm talking about top 5 invoice ID. Okay. I'm talking about on top 5 invoice ID, but the result has come based on invoice total. Top 5 total has come, but we are talking about top 5 invoice ID, right? So the reason is we are ordering by invoice total. That's why it is there. Okay, that's why it's there. Let's avoid this. Okay, let's avoid this. Top 5 vendor ID. We will see. Let's ignore them all. Select first. We will select all vendors. Order by. Okay. Here you see 1, 2, 3. Here 34 2 times, 37 3 times, and then 48. If I select top 4, select top 4, 37 comes, right? But the fifth value also 37. It is like ranking. Okay. So this is same, no? This is same vendor. The vendor number means it's like an identity card. So first marks is one student number. This is one student. Second marks is another student. Third marks another student. And fourth marks is same student. Fifth marks is also same student. So if I say bring me top 4, it becomes it brings 37. But the fifth one is also 37. Right? The fifth one is also 37. In those instances, we don't know whether it is 37 or something else. So if you want to say, if the next value is also same, please bring him as well with ties. Okay, please bring him as well. It is done by the keyword with ties. So this values are tying, right? Same, they are tying. So you just bring him as well. Okay, so this is how it works. Ties. This is number of records. Also, we can have top 5%. Okay, top 5%. This is number. Only 5 numbers will be returned. Right? 5 numbers will be returned. And if you omit this, cut this, and run, there are 114 rows. 114 rows. I would like to say top 10. So if it is top 10, 10 records. 1, 2, 3, top 10 records, right? If you want to see top 10% of the entire rows, all rows out of 114, top 10%, we have to make sure we use percent keyword. Okay, percent keyword. Then you will see 12 comes. You know why? 114 is there. 114 is there. 10% of 114 is 11.4. There cannot be any record 11.4 records. So the next absolute value is 12. Right? 12. That's why it is showing 12 records. Right? That's why it is showing 12 records. So it is picking up the top values based on invoice total. Okay, based on invoice total, it is picking up. Right? Any questions? Please ask me. So we use a top keyword to get the top records based on the values that is given in the order by close. We can use a number or percentage. If you want to have it by based on percentage, you have to include percent keyword. If it is just numbers, you don't have to mention the percent keyword, just give the numbers. And if you want to have the matching records with the last one, you have to use with ties keywords, so that the matching values, the next matching values will also be included in the record set. Any doubts? Any doubts? Do you understand this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So we will go back to the slides now. Fine. So we use a select all only when you need to retrieve all the columns from a table. We understood, right? We have seen this. So if you want to retrieve all data from a table, entire data, whole data, we use this asterisk, select all. Okay. Any doubts?
No, sir.
Otherwise, we use a list of names of columns. Vendor ID, comma, vendor name, comma, vendor city, like that. We use the column names. And then we saw how we can code an expression. Expression is a combination of column names and operators with some values, right? Expression. Invoice total multiplied by 10%. Expression, right? With the select clause, you can code arithmetic expressions. We can code arithmetic expression. So what we did here is an arithmetic operation, right? Expression, arithmetic operations, right? That include one or more functions. Even you can use functions, right? Even you can use functions. Say, for example, get date. So here date comes. Okay, date comes. You can use function also, right? After each column specification, you can code S keyword, right? To code the alias. If there is an expression, you can use T-SQL version of this alias using equal sign. Otherwise, you can use S keyword as well, right? Where is that S keyword? S keyword here. S keyword we can use. This is called column alias. Column alias. LIS or alias, right? Column alias. You can use a old or distinct keyword. You can use distinct keyword to display unique records, right? You can use distinct keyword to display unique records so that duplicates are not included in the result set. Last one is you can use top keyword to display top ranking values. Maybe a number of rows, or maybe a percentage, top 10%, 20%, like that you can use, right? Column alias we have seen, substitute name. As keyword we can use, we have seen. So instead of as keyword, we can use an equal sign followed by the column name, right? Column alias followed by equal sign and then the expression. That is a T-SQL version. We have here column name, equal sign followed by expression. This is a T-SQL version of T-SQL version. Okay, it's Transit SQL. Transit. Okay, this is Microsoft version, Microsoft flavor of SQL. Okay, if you have a text value or date values, you have to use double quotes or brackets. The previous versions of SQL Server supported single quote, so they will be supported. Here we have a single quote. Here we have square brackets, or even you can have double quotes to include if there is a text value or a date value, string value, or date values, right? So we have seen up to these top keyword, right? And also I wanted to show you something else that is using a wait for a while. I'll be back. Oh, what is it? Oh, okay. Okay. So next I wanted to show you for today's class, I wanted to show you how we can use apostrophe and comma, right? Apostrophe and comma. If you want to concatenate, while we concatenate, say for example, we want to concatenate two columns, select all from vendors, right? Here we have vendor address, vendor city, and vendor state. So if you want to display, select vendor name, vendor city, vendor state from vendors. Okay, we want to display these three, and join this vendor city and vendor state. I want to show this as address, right? Vendor address. So what I can do is I can use this plus sign. Plus sign. When you use plus sign with at least one string value, it joins the values. Right? Listen carefully. When you use plus sign with at least one string value, both values are joined, concatenated. When you use this plus sign with two or more numeric values, it adds, it sums up, right? So here it is going to concatenate it, join it. See here, let's put like this. So vendor name, vendor city, vendor state, and then join them both. Vendor name, vendor city, vendor state, 1 comma 2 comma from vendors. Okay, fine, right? So here Madison WI, right? So both of them joined together create this form. So what we have to do is we have to have a space in between these two columns, right? Space here. So let me bring it to next line. Vendor city as address. Okay. So address may be a reserved word. So I'm going to enclose it within single quote, right? So it is reading as address. Still, I need a space. So what I can do is I can put another plus sign and a double quote or single quote. Okay, a space. Now I would like to execute this. Here there's a space. Okay, can you see this space?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Fine. So now if you want to have a comma here, I can put a comma. Right? Run this. Fine. So if you want to add a comma, now I would like to say UL Postal Service address, National Information Data Center address, like that. I would like to have another text added to this. Okay. In that instance, what I can do is I can have plus sign, right? Plus sign and address. Let's run this. You see here, US Postal Service address. So I would like to have a space and run this. Okay. So UL Postal Services address, possessive pronoun. Okay. Services, it becomes like a plural, but I want an apostrophe. So I would like to have it like Subrasis address. Okay. So if I want to add this apostrophe, how I can do it? Let's see. If I want to add, if I put like this, there's an error. Let me put another and execute. Now it works, right? Do you see this? US Postal Services address, centers address, copyrights address, job tracks address, apostrophe S is displayed. Do you see this? In the screen. Can you see now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if you want to have an
Yes, sir.
apostrophe, what you have to do is you have to have two apostrophes added. Okay. If you want to have single apostrophe, you have to have two apostrophes, right? The others go same. The others go same. And it has no column name mentioned. So what we can do is vendor as vendor name. As vendor name, you can have a space. So that now it will give a column heading also. Okay, you see vendor name, vendor city, vendor state, address, right? So we can what we can do is we can delete this and display so that vendor name and address comes. So this is what all I wanted to cover today, up to these having apostrophe and top keyword with ties, distinct keyword, and overview of how we use a select clause. In the next class, we will see in depth how we can use where clause and order by clause. Right? Any questions up to this point? Any questions? Please ask any questions.
No, sir, no.
Fine. So let me share this code in code share. Paste chat box for all. Okay, please visit this site and copy the code. Also, I will save this. My teaching database 7. Today is 25th. Right? I'll share this code as well. So if you have any doubts, please post your doubts in our WhatsApp group. And with these, I would like to conclude the session. Okay.